Husband exposes wife's affair with her bosses, sends proof to their families. Imagine discovering the love of your life might be hiding the darkest secret you've ever feared. That's where our story begins, with a man whose world gets flipped upside down in just one moment. It all starts on an ordinary evening. Our main character, let's call him John, is sitting at home, waiting for his wife, Sarah, to return from another work event. She's been attending these events more often lately, claiming they're important for her career. But something has been eating at John for weeks now. Something just feels off. John's phone buzzes, breaking the silence in the room. It's a message, but not from anyone he knows. He hesitates for a moment before opening it. What he sees makes his stomach drop. There are photos, and not just any photos. They show Sarah, his wife, sitting a little too close to her boss, Ron. They're at a work party surrounded by people, but something about the way they're looking at each other, the way they're touching, doesn't seem right. And then there's the video. It shows them slipping away from the crowd, disappearing into a private room. John's heart races. At first, he tries to shake it off. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. But the pit in his stomach tells him otherwise. His mind begins to race with questions. Is Sarah really cheating on me? Could she be lying all this time? What if these photos are fake? But deep down, he knows something isn't right. He just doesn't want to believe it. Not yet. He's not ready to face the possibility that the woman he loves might be betraying him. For the next few days, John tries to act normal. He watches Sarah closely, noticing things he never paid attention to before. She seems distant, always on her phone, constantly talking about work, but never in detail. When he asks how the day went, her answers are short, almost rehearsed. It's as if she's going through the motions, but her mind is somewhere else. And John can't help but wonder, who is she thinking about? It's driving him crazy, but he needs more than just some photos from a stranger. He needs real proof, something solid. He can't confront her without knowing for sure. So he makes a decision that will change everything. He hires a private investigator. John knows he can't live with the uncertainty any longer. The photos and videos that were sent to him keep replaying in his mind. He needs the truth. But more than that, he needs undeniable proof before he can confront Sarah. He's not the kind of man to act on just suspicion. So he takes a deep breath and makes a tough decision. The next day, while Sarah is at work, John sits down at the kitchen table, phone in hand. His fingers hover over the screen for a moment. He's about to do something he never thought he'd have to do in his marriage, hire a private investigator. The thought feels heavy, but he can't shake the need to know. He doesn't want to confront her without being absolutely sure. After a quick search online, he finds a private investigator in the area. The man's name is Mark. John calls him, and they arrange a meeting later that afternoon. When they meet, Mark is calm, professional, and straightforward. He's been in the business for years and has seen it all. Mark listens carefully as John explains the situation, the strange behavior, the photos, the videos. Mark nods as if he's heard the story 1,000 times before. We'll find out what's really going on, he says in a low, steady voice. It gives John a small sense of relief knowing he's finally taking control of the situation. For the next few days, John carries on as usual. He smiles when Sarah walks through the door, asks her about her day, and pretends like everything is fine. But inside, he's crumbling. Every time Sarah glances at her phone or mentions her boss, John feels a knot tighten in his chest. He starts to wonder if she notices how distracted he is. Does she know? He asks himself, but he quickly shakes the thought away. She can't know? Not yet. Meanwhile, Mark is hard at work. He follows Sarah as she leaves for another work event. John waits by his phone, anxiously checking for updates from Mark. Hours go by, and finally a message comes through. Mark tells John that he's gathered some evidence. They'd arrange another meeting the following day. When John meets Mark again, the investigator lays out what he's found. It's worse than John could have imagined. There are more photos, more videos, and this time, there's no mistaking it. Sarah is not only involved with Ron, her boss, but she's also been seeing Charlie, the CEO of the company. Mark's proof is undeniable. There are hotel receipts, text messages, and even security footage. The pieces of the puzzle start to fit together in John's mind. It hits him hard, like a punch to the gut. The woman he's loved and trusted for years has been lying to him, betraying him with not just one man, but two. And these aren't just any men. These are the people she works with, men she sees every day. The humiliation stings deep. John sits in his car after the meeting, staring out the windshield. His mind is racing, but at the same time, he feels frozen. How could she do this to him? How long has this been going on? The anger builds up inside him, but so does the sadness. He had trusted Sarah with his whole heart, and now that trust has been shattered into a million pieces. But one thing is clear, he can't confront her yet. Not now. Not like this. He's not just going to storm into their home and accuse her. He's smarter than that. He wants her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand just how much she's hurt him. That's when John decides he's going to turn the tables. He's going to gather every last piece of evidence he can, and when the time is right, he's going to make sure Sarah and her bosses can't just walk away from this. They'll have to face the consequences of what they've done. But until then, he'll continue pretending like everything is normal, like he's none the wiser. You know, there's a moment when everything becomes crystal clear, when all the doubts, all the questions just vanish, and you're left with one cold, hard truth. That moment hit me when I saw the evidence Mark had gathered. I didn't want to believe it. No one does. But there it was, staring me in the face. I remember sitting in the car after the meeting with Mark, staring at those photos, the texts, the hotel receipts. Sarah wasn't just having an affair with Ron, her boss. No, she was involved with Charlie too. The CEO. 2 men, both from her office. And me. I'm just the fool who thought we had a normal, happy marriage. I wanted to scream, to cry, to just feel something. But instead, I went numb. It's like my body shut down, protecting me from the full weight of it all. But as I sat there, numb and cold, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. No, I had to be smart about this. If I played this right, she and those 2 scumbags wouldn't see it coming. So, I decided I'd play along. I'd pretend like nothing was wrong, like I didn't know a thing. I'd watch her every move, let her think she was still fooling me, while I gathered even more evidence, enough to bury her and her bosses. That night, I went home, and when Sarah walked through the door, I forced myself to smile. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just been with one of them earlier. My skin crawled at the thought, but I kept it together. I had to. For the next few weeks, I became an actor in my own life. Every morning, I'd wake up next to Sarah, smile at her, kiss her goodbye as she left for work, all while knowing exactly what she was doing. It was like living in some twisted nightmare, but I stayed focused on the plan. Mark continued to feed me more evidence. Emails, texts, phone calls. Sarah was so careless, so confident that I had no clue what was going on. She'd tell me she was working late, but I knew she wasn't working. She was with them. And every time she lied to my face, it only fueled the fire inside me. But I didn't just want to expose her affair. That would have been too easy. I wanted to make sure she and those men paid for what they did, emotionally, legally, and professionally. So, I reached out to a lawyer. I wanted to make sure I had everything in place before I dropped the bombshell. Divorce, splitting our assets, everything. I wasn't going to leave any loose ends. There were moments, though, when I almost broke. When I'd see her laughing on the phone, probably talking to one of them, I'd feel this sharp pain in my chest. I'd think about the years we spent together, all the good memories, and wonder how it had come to this. I wanted to grab her, shake her, and demand to know why she did it. What wasn't I enough? What had I done wrong? But then I'd remember those photos, those videos, her lies, and that anger would come rushing back, pushing down the hurt. She did this, I'd tell myself. She made these choices. Every night as she slept next to me, I'd lie there wide awake, wondering when the right moment would come. When would I finally have enough evidence to take her down? And not just her, but Ron and Charlie too. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. One day, Mark sent me the final piece of the puzzle. It was a video, a private moment between Sarah and Ron in a hotel room. It was exactly what I needed, undeniable, inescapable proof. As I watched the video, something clicked inside me. The time had come. I had enough. More than enough. But I wasn't going to storm into the house and confront her. No, I had something bigger planned. I was going to destroy her life just like she had destroyed mine. I compiled everything, every text, every photo, every video, and sent it all to Ron's and Charlie's families, their wives, their kids. Everyone needed to know what kind of men they really were. And as for Sarah, I had something special planned for her too. I wasn't just going to tell her it was over. I was going to make sure she knew just how badly she had messed up. I thought pretending everything was fine would get easier with time, but it didn't. Every day felt heavier, like I was carrying this massive weight on my chest. Knowing what I knew and still seeing Sarah walk around the house like she had nothing to hide. It made me sick, but I had to keep going. I had to stay calm, stay in control. After all, the plan was in motion. I kept watching her. Every little thing she did felt like a clue. I started noticing how she always kept her phone close, even when she went to the bathroom. She never used to do that. When she thought I wasn't paying attention, she'd glance at her screen, smirking at whatever message she'd just received. Probably from one of them, Ron, or maybe even Charlie. It didn't matter at this point. They were both in it with her. Some nights, she'd tell me she had to stay late at work again. Big projects coming up, she'd say. And not like I believed her. But inside, I knew where she really was. I'd get texts from Mark, confirming that she was meeting one of them. Sometimes it was a hotel. Sometimes it was a bar. It almost became routine for her, like she didn't even care anymore if she got caught. But I wasn't going to blow up on her. Not yet. No, I wanted to wait until the perfect moment. I wanted her to dig herself in so deep that there was no way out. There were nights when I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long she thought she could keep this up. She'd come home late, make up some excuse about a meeting running long or drinks with coworkers, and then crawl into bed next to me, acting like everything was normal, like I was too stupid to figure it out. I hated her for that. But more than that, I hated how she made me feel, like I was nothing. Then one day, Mark sent me a message that changed everything. It was more than just the usual photos or texts. This time, he'd managed to record Sarah talking with Charlie. They didn't know he was listening, but their conversation confirmed everything. Sarah was laughing about how easy it was to keep me in the dark. She talked about how clueless I was, how she had both Ron and Charlie wrapped around her finger. I could feel the rage boiling inside me. Hearing her talk about me like that, like I was some kind of joke, it cut deeper than anything I'd ever felt before. But at the same time, it was exactly what I needed. This was it, the final piece of proof. Sarah didn't just cheat on me, she mocked me, disrespected me in ways I couldn't even begin to explain. But I kept my cool. I wasn't going to let my emotions take over. Not yet. I had something bigger planned. Something that would tear apart not only her life, but also the lives of those two men who thought they could get away with this. The next day, I began putting everything together. I organized all the photos, all the videos, all the texts, and this new recording. I made sure it was airtight. There was no way Sarah could deny it once everything came out. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to make sure Ron and Charlie didn't just walk away from this unscathed. They needed to feel the consequences of their actions just as much as Sarah did. So I compiled everything into one big package. I didn't send it to Sarah right away. No, that would have been too easy. Instead, I reached out to Ron's and Charlie's families. Their wives, their kids, everyone who needed to know what kind of men they really were. I wasn't going to let them hide behind their power or their money. As I sat there, putting the final touches on my plan, I felt an odd sense of calm. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't filled with anger or sadness. I felt prepared. I was in control now. The ball was in my court. That night, Sarah came home late again. She had that same smile on her face, the one she always wore when she thought she had me fooled. But this time, it didn't bother me, because I knew it was almost over. I knew that soon she wouldn't be able to smile like that ever again. We ate dinner together, just like we always did. She talked about her day, about work, about things that didn't matter, and I just sat there, nodding along, waiting for the right moment. It was coming, and when it did, it would change everything. I knew the moment had come. Everything was ready. I had all the proof, every last detail in place, and now it was time to pull the trigger. I've been waiting for this, planning it out carefully, making sure that when it all came crashing down, there'd be no way for Sarah, Ron, or Charlie to escape the consequences. It was a Friday evening, and Sarah came home like she always did, acting normal, smiling, talking about how work had been so stressful lately. I couldn't help but notice how at ease she looked, like she wasn't carrying the weight of a secret that could destroy our marriage. It almost made me laugh how unaware she was of what was about to happen. After dinner, I sat her down. I told her we needed to talk, and for a second, I saw a flicker of worry in her eyes. Maybe it was the way I said it, calm but firm. She wasn't used to seeing me like this. For weeks, I'd been the same old John, the one she thought she could lie to without a second thought. But tonight was different. She sat across from me, trying to act casual, but I could see her fidgeting. And then I asked her, "Sarah, do you have anything you want to tell me?" She looked confused at first, then defensive. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a little too calm. I didn't answer right away. I just let the silence hang in the air for a moment. It was uncomfortable, and I could see her starting to get nervous. "Are you sure there's nothing you want to say?" I asked again. I was giving her a chance. One last chance to come clean on her own, but she didn't take it. Instead, she doubled down. "John, what are you talking about? You're acting strange." That was it. I reached into my bag and pulled out the stack of papers. The photos, the text messages, the hotel receipts, everything. I laid it all out on the table in front of her. "This is what I'm talking about," I said, my voice steady. "I know, Sarah. I know about Ron. I know about Charlie. I know everything." Her face went pale. For a moment, she just stared at the evidence, her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. She didn't say anything, and I could see the panic building in her eyes. She looked down at the photos, Photos of her with Ron, of her with Charlie, texts where she told them she loved them, hotel receipts with dates that matched the nights she told me she was working late. It was all there in black and white. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. She looked at me, and I could see the gears turning in her head. She was trying to figure out what to say, how to explain it all away, but there was nothing she could say. The proof was undeniable. She was caught. Finally, after what felt like forever, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I laughed, actually laughed. It wasn't even planned. It just came out. "Sorry? That's all you've got?" I asked, shaking my head. "You're sorry? After everything? After months of lying to my face, sneaking around behind my back, you're sorry?" Tears started to fill her eyes, but I didn't feel sympathy. Not anymore. I'd spent weeks feeling hurt, feeling betrayed, feeling like my world was falling apart. Now I just felt anger. "You didn't think I'd find out, did you?" I said, leaning forward. "You thought you could keep this secret forever. Play a little game, have your fun, and I just sit here, clueless." "John, please," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't," I snapped. "Don't try to talk your way out of this. I gave you a chance. I gave you so many chances to come clean. But you didn't. You kept lying. And for what? For Ron? For Charlie? What was it worth, Sarah?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. The tears were falling freely now, but it was too late for tears. There was nothing she could say that would fix what she'd done. "I've already sent everything to Ron's and Charlie's families," I said, my voice cold. "Their wives know. Their kids know. Everyone knows. You're not just ruining our life, Sarah. You're ruining theirs too." The hand flew to her mouth as if she was trying to stop herself from crying out, but it was too late. The reality of what was happening was crashing down on her. She wasn't just losing me, she was losing everything. "I've also spoken to a lawyer," I continued. "The divorce papers are ready. I'm done. We're done." She tried to stand up, tried to come toward me, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Don't," I said. "Don't try to fix this. It's too late." The room was silent, except for the sound of her quiet sobs. I felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse. Just a strange sense of relief. The weight I'd been carrying for so long was finally gone. I'd done what I needed to do. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. As I left, I looked back one last time. Sarah was still sitting there, hunched over the table, her face buried in her hands. Part of me thought I might feel some kind of satisfaction seeing her like that, but I didn't. I walked out the door, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Walking away from her wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. After everything I'd been through, after everything I knew, there was no going back. I'd imagined this moment for weeks, how it would feel, what I'd say, but in the end, it felt strangely quiet. Like the world had been screaming around me for so long, and now finally it was still. For days after, I kept waiting for something to hit me. Maybe I'd feel regret, or maybe the sadness would creep in, but it didn't. I felt empty, sure, but not in a bad way. More like all the pain, all the anger had drained out of me. I had no more fight left. It was over, and that was enough. I didn't hear from Sarah much after that. I think she understood there was no point. We signed the divorce papers without much drama. She didn't even try to fight me for anything. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she just wanted it all to end as much as I did. Whatever the reason, it was quick clean. She moved out a few days later, and just like that, the life we'd built together was gone. It's strange how fast everything can change. One minute you think you have it all, love, trust, a future, and the next it's all shattered. But even in the wreckage, I found a sense of peace. The worst part was over. I had faced the truth, confronted her, and now I could finally breathe again. People always talk about how betrayal changes you, how it leaves scars you can never really heal from. I think that's true to some extent. I'm not the same person I was before all this. I don't trust as easily. I don't look at love the same way I used to. But I also learned something important. I learned my own strength. I learned that even when everything falls apart, you can still find a way to stand up and move forward. There are times when I look back on it all, on the marriage, the lies, the affair, and I wonder if I missed the signs. Was I too trusting, too blind? But then I remind myself that this wasn't my fault. I didn't cause this. Sarah made her choices. Ron and Charlie made theirs, and I made mine. And my choice was to survive this, to come out the other side, not bitter, not broken, but stronger. I know that might sound cliché, but it's true. When you've been hurt like that, you can either let it destroy you, or you can use it to rebuild yourself. I chose the latter. As for Ron and Charlie, well, last I heard, their lives aren't going too well. Their families left them. Their careers took a hit. I don't take any pleasure in their downfall, though. I don't spend my days thinking about them or what they did. They're just part of a chapter in my life that's over now. I've started to move on. Slowly but surely, I don't know what the future holds for me, but I do know this. I'm not defined by what happened. I'm not the guy whose wife cheated on him. I'm just me. A little older, a little wiser, and a lot more careful, but I'm still here. And that's enough.